Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for our Electric Bicycle Incentives Project Work Group. My name is Aria Berliner, and I am the lead staff over the Electric Bicycle Incentives Project. I am joined today by Lisa McCumber, manager over the funding plan, the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, and the Electric Bicycle Incentives Project. Before we get started, I want to go over some logistics for today. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. We anticipate a copy of the recording will be made available on the Low Carbon Transportation Investments and Air Quality Improvement Program Meetings and Workshops page in approximately 2 weeks. Materials for today's work group are available on the same webpage, and a link to these materials has been dropped into the chat. Additionally, today's meeting is being translated live in Spanish. In a little bit, you will be able to access the interpretation button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. For Spanish speakers, please join the Spanish channel, and the meeting will be translated to you in Spanish. Please be mindful when speaking so that the interpreters can translate what you're saying. You do not need to speak super slow, but we ask that you do not speak super fast.
Aria, I'm going to jump in really quick to flag that unfortunately, I'm unable to repair the technical issue that we're having. So we can't get the translation channels to turn on. Not sure why, but they're not turning on. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to have Jeanette, our translator today, translate after you provide some information, so that way we can kind of keep up. So we're going to kind of take turns providing the English and then Spanish translation from there. So I'm going to pause and ask Jeanette, would you like to translate for what Aria has said so far?
Yes, of course, I'm ready.
Thank you.
I think Leticia is trying to get into the meeting, but something is going on. She
Okay.
couldn't.
I will keep an eye out for her and work with her offline. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Hola, mi nombre es Aria Berliner y voy a ser la coordinadora de este grupo. Y por favor estamos pidiéndole a todos que si necesitan entrar a esta reunión, pueden seleccionar su lenguaje de preferencia. Por favor, le pedimos a todos que puedan hacer sus comentarios públicos, hacerlo también de una forma despacio para que la interpretación sea lo más fidedigna posible. No le pedimos que esté hablando muy despacio, pero sí que tenga su pausa. Muchas gracias. Back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so people can see our slideshow. But Lisa, it looks like you have something to say.
Yeah, we do have a hand that's raised, and I just want to acknowledge for the participant that has a raised hand. We'll be opening up the line for questions in just a few moments, so hang tight.
Okay, everyone can see my presentation, correct?
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. We will be leveraging Zoom's raised hand and Q&A box features to facilitate comments and questions. If you would like to submit comments or questions in writing, please use the Zoom Q&A feature, and we will address policy-related questions verbally for the benefit of all attendees. Please remember to state your name and affiliation when making a comment after asking a question. Leticia, would you like to translate that?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Solamente para dejarles saber a todos de que en un momento vamos a comenzar a la junta ya. Si usted va a acceder a la presentación, usted va a poder mirar un vínculo un icono en forma de un mundo, y ahí usted puede seleccionar cualquier lenguaje que usted guste, sea el español o el inglés. Cuando usted esté escuchándolo ya en el lenguaje que usted desea, si solamente lo prefiere escuchar solamente en el español, usted necesitaría enmudar el audio original. y entonces para ya hacer esa parte, entonces ya puede escucharlo completamente en español. Pero vamos a seguir con la siguiente parte de lo que la señorita va a seguir hablando. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. If there are Zoom disruptions for any reason, including malicious intent, we will immediately end today's meeting and send out another notice to reschedule. And lastly, we are unable to allow anonymous meeting participants for security reasons. Please make sure your name is clear on the Zoom platform. If you've called in, we will adjust your phone number and call on you if you raised your hand based on the last 4 digits of your number.
Asegúrese de que también no haya disrupciones de cualquier clase, sonidos de atrás que vayan a afectar a la junta. Si usted ocupa llamar la atención de alguien, usted puede mandar su preocupación sea por la ventanilla del chat o el Q y el A, y después vamos a seguir hablando acerca más de más instrucciones para la junta. Go ahead, Aria.
Thanks, Leticia. Andrea, I see that we have a raised hand. Let's go ahead and take that before we move on to the agenda. Oh, it's gone. Never mind. With that, we'll move on to the agenda. Next slide. Okay, cool.
Con eso ahora nos vamos a mover a la agenda.
Today's agenda is as follows. We'll talk about policy considerations, including income eligibility, incentive amounts, and eligible electric bicycles. After each topic, we will have a focused discussion. After we finish discussing policy considerations, I'll provide a brief timeline. I'll then open it up for more discussion and close with next steps.
Y ahora para la agenda vamos a pasar con un sobrepaso y introducciones, consideraciones de las pólizas, la elegibilidad de los ingresos, las cantidades de los incentivos y también las bicicletas eléctricas, quién va a ser elegible para esto y tiempo de línea, discusiones y a los siguientes pasos también. Go ahead, Aria.
Thank you. Sorry, my computer's a little slow. First, we'd like to discuss income eligibility. We are proposing to align income eligibility with income eligibility limits with CVRP's increased rebate, CC4A, and financing assistance, which means an income limit of 400% FPL. That means for a family of 4, in order to be eligible to receive an e-bike incentive, their income would have to be $111,000 or less. For an individual, that number is about $54,000. However, we are interested in hearing feedback on moving this limit if there is a change to income limits for the vehicle purchase incentive programs, meaning that should this program stay aligned or stay at 400% FPL. And after Leticia translates, I would like to open it up for discussion.
Okay, sure. Bien, entonces vamos a hablar acerca de la elegibilidad de los ingresos y vamos a ver para alinearse más bien con el CVRP, lo que ha subido de las cantidades, el CST4A y la asistencia financiera de los límites hacia los ingresos. Se va a comenzar con un ingreso del límite de 400% de FPL. Eso está hablando acerca de familias de 4. Si los ingresos son de 111,000 o menos, o si los individuales tienen una cantidad de $50,000 y quizás haga cambios en ingresos, eso es también para mantenerse alineado. Vamos a repasar hacia lo siguiente del año, si en caso que haya cambio de los límites para poder comprar vehículos de acuerdo a los programas de incentivos. Y ahora la señorita Aria le está gustando para poder abrir para discusión a partir de esta parte. And Aria, did you want to issue me as an interpreter already so I can do this simultaneously? Or how would you like to proceed?
So we ran into a technical issue and it's not turning on the translation channels. And
Oh, I see.
I'm so sorry about that. Thank you so much though for being here. And we'll just have to kind of adapt and toggle from there. And we
Okay.
have received a couple of questions or requests to make sure that we are spelling out acronyms for those that aren't familiar with our program. So if we can make sure to do that, that'd be really helpful. And we have had a request to turn on subtitles if we're able to. So I am working on trying to get that going in the background. So please bear with me, folks. Thank you.
Andrea, do we have any raised hands in the chat?
Yes, we have a few raised hands. So I will go ahead and call on people in line to speak. After I've announced your name, you may need to unmute your own mic, and then please state your name and affiliation and begin asking your question. So
Un
our
poco de lo
first-
que, I'm sorry, did you want me to say that?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Un poco de lo que estaban diciendo las señoritas, si ustedes pueden mudarse su micrófono y para poder seguir hablando acerca de todo, no va a ser interpretación simultánea. Ahora han tenido una parte de dificultad técnica, pero vamos a tratar de seguir adelante con todo esto. Si hay preguntas, puedan ponerlo en el Q y el A en la ventana del chat al igual. Go ahead.
All right, our first presenter or speaker will be Susan. Susan, I am unmuting your line.
Perfect. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Okay, and my apologies, I have to leave after this, so I just wanted to get this in. Kudos to actually moving us along. Thank you very much. My one suggestion is centered around how you frame things. We tend to in the world say, you have a limit here, or you can't do this, or here's the bucket. And when we do that, we kind of verbally actually tell people they're locked out for certain reasons. And so it makes you feel like you can't play. So you just kind of go away. Instead of looking up the poverty limit, things like, you just kind of go away. It's a way of turning the customer off. And so thinking about how to frame it differently, we're like, if you really want to go after low income, say we're going to put 50% low income, 50% everybody else. That's a more positive statement, makes me feel like I can be in that space. And then, if you're going through the program and you find that you're not getting enough low income, you can actually shift your rebates, increase your low income rebates, things like that. And that's another positive is, as a middle income or let's say a high income, if I see that it's a double rebate for someone who's low income to get them to participate, I think that's fantastic. I want to see that money, see that we're designing programs to help a piece of the community. And so that's another positive way of saying something without feeling like I can't participate, and because I don't know, but I'm probably close to your income limit. And so we do that on a regular basis. And if we can avoid that, I think we'd get better comments and stuff. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, if you can give me one quick second to interpret that, please.
Thank you.
Sure. Bueno, lo que estaba diciendo la señorita Susan, ella es la presentadora, se llama Susan Davison y ella en un momento tiene salida para irse a otra parte, pero ella tiene una sugestión en cómo es que pueden hacer esto un poco mejor, cómo sacar un marco más mejor de manera para hacerlo, para poder sacar comentarios más bien verbales y no mirarse hacia afuera. Quieren sacar un marco más diferente, quizás algo que sea de 50% bajo de los ingresos o algo que sea 50% de otra cosa, mitad de mitad, pasando para poder llegar a los reembolsos. Eso sería otra manera positiva de poder hacerlo. Y ahora para poder llegar a la participación de otra manera que sea una manera positiva, sin que no tenga que participar en haciéndolo regularmente en un base irregular. Eso sería una manera mejor de poder hacerlo. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for your comments. We recognize that when we say limit, we're obviously limiting the number of people or the group of people that can actually take advantage of this, but this is an income focused low income focused program, or it will be. And so we say that right off the bat so that we're able to support we're able to support our equity goals and making sure that people who need the incentives are getting the incentives.
Okay.
I appreciate that comment.
Muchas gracias por eso,
thank you.
Susan. Yo sí reconozco de que estamos trabajando con límites o con grupos de personas que son basados en los ingresos, y este programa es un programa basado en esto, y para dar el apoyo correctamente de esto viene siendo un programa basado hacia las metas de las equidades. Go ahead.
I appreciate it, Aria. I mean, it's clear. And so, and I'll step back and say again, even if you did like 75% low income and you robustly made those bigger, it's just a different way of not excluding anyone, or shifting the focus just a little bit, our use of words and how we design a program is so important for our success, and we want you all to be successful in this. So thanks for the comments. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Le agradezco, Aria, por todo lo que está diciendo, que ha sido muy aclarada. Aunque estamos mirando al 75% o aún más grande, sería una diferente manera de cómo poder cambiar el enfoque hacia diferentes palabras y para cómo mejor diseñar este programa. Le agradezco. Gracias. Go ahead.
Our next speaker will be Dan Kellmack. Dan?
El siguiente presentador va a ser Dan Kellmack. Dan, si puedes seguir.
Hi, you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. My name is Dan Kellmack. I'm a city council member with the city of Huntington Beach. I also serve on Orange County Transportation Authority's Citizens Advisory Committee, but my comments today are my own. I really appreciate CARB and CalBike working towards this initiative. It's really important in a big beach city like Huntington Beach that's very flat. We also have a DAC and an EJ community in our city, and I think a program like this, additionally to taking cars off the road, lowering greenhouse gas emissions, can also help just low-income folks not have to afford auto insurance and eliminate that need for a car when we're in an area where somebody may only have to travel 6 or 8 miles to go to work. One of the things that, since we have such limited dollars in this program, potentially adding a work requirement, because I do know a lot of folks that are retired that would be in this qualification that would be able to absorb this rebate, but wouldn't necessarily be taking an enormous number of trips off the road, whereas the working low income folks that are going 2-3 trips or 4 trips a day for work, multiple jobs, being able to get those cars off the road, I think would be better impactful, I guess, across the board, right? Lowering car trips, lowering the GHGs, and then helping folks out that really need the money or that need the incentive. And I think that eligibility requirement, again, just with this small pot of money, that could disappear at some point, but potentially having a or at least prioritizing those folks that are still working as opposed to being retired in that 400% FPL. So thank you again so much for presenting this project. And we're as a member of also the Orange County Power Authority, one of our incentives is also going to be to in the future is hopefully going to be to adding an e-bike requirement. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Bueno, yo soy Dan Kellmack. Yo estoy con el condado. Soy parte de la consejería del comité y estoy trabajando acerca con los incentivos en Huntington Beach. También tenemos una doqueta en nuestra ciudad. Tenemos este programa en donde estamos pensando en quitar los carros fuera de las calles, carros que caminan a cerca de 50 millas para llegar a los trabajos. Esto sería algo limitado y el dinero sería limitado en este programa, y sería mejor enfocarlo hacia las personas retiradas que quizás personas que vayan a observar un poco mejor los reembolsos, tomando la gente que toma los viajes, quizás como de 3 a 4 viajes cada vez que vayan a ir al trabajo. Esto sería la meta para quitar los carros y mejor ayudar a las personas que en realidad ocupan los incentivos. Esto podría desaparecer el problema que hay y dar prioridad a las personas que ocupan los incentivos dentro del FPL. Y entonces le doy muchas gracias a todos y de todas maneras esto es para quizás más adelante se podría agregar otra parte de requerimientos hacia este programa. Go ahead.
Thank you. Dan, thank you for your feedback. That is something that we'll bring back and discuss with the team.
Great,
Muchas
thank you.
gracias, Jan. Gracias por sus entradas. Es algo que vamos a discutir con la Junta y después nos regresamos con usted. Bien, gracias.
Our next speaker will be Bruce.
And
Bruce?
before we open the line for Bruce really quick, I'm sorry, Andrea. I just want to flag for folks that I've got about 22 questions and comments in the question and answer box. And for folks that are waiting for a response, just so that you understand the protocol, we have to read each one of those aloud and provide a response for the benefit of the recording. So please hang tight. If you have questions, try to hang on a moment as somebody else might ask the question that you're thinking as well. So we're going to get through a few hands and then we'll shift over to the Q&A box from there.
Prontamente, yo sé que quería que Bruce comenzara, pero antes de que él comience, antes de llegar a lo siguiente, quería dejar saber de que hay bastante preguntas y comentarios en la caja del Q y el A, y solamente le quiero dejar de que entienda de que esta caja, para seguir un protocolo de qué es lo que vamos a seguir, pueden entrar las preguntas y los comentarios, solo que si se pudieran esperar un poco más hacia adelante, hacia el último de la junta para poder contestar todo, porque es para beneficio de la grabación. Así es que si usted se puede esperarse un poco, mantenerse en espera para poder contestar los comentarios y las preguntas más adelante. Gracias. Go ahead.
All right, Bruce, I have unmuted your line.
Hello, this is Bruce. I'm in the Bay Area. I just want to say it's a fantastic program. So glad that it finally got launched. I think it's so important to get more e-bikes out there. They're key enablers for a lot of people to start cycling. So I just want to thank you for that. I just want to say that, you know, in the Bay Area, things are a little more expensive. So the 400% federal poverty level might be a little low. I don't know. It seems to me, but anyway, I just think it's a great program. Thank you.
Bien, entonces soy Bruce y yo estoy en la área de la Bahía de Bay y solamente quería decir de que este es un programa muy fantástico. Creo que es algo muy bueno de que quieran subir las entradas para las bicicletas que son electrónicas y solamente para ayudar a las personas que comienzan a usar las bicicletas. Quiero darles las gracias. Yo sé que bastante de las cosas aquí en la área de la Bahía son un poco caras, pero creo que este es un programa muy grandioso. Gracias. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bruce, for your feedback.
Muchas gracias, Bruce, por sus entradas.
Our next raised hand is Douglas.
La
Douglas,
siguiente persona que está en lista es Douglas.
I've unmuted your.
Lo he desenmudado.
I'm sorry, I seem to have lost Douglas, or his hand has been lowered.
Parece que ya lo hemos perdido, su mano la bajó.
So let's go to Glenn. Glenn,
Ahora
I
vamos
muted
a-
your line.
Vamos a ir con Glenn, ya le he desenmudado su línea.
Glenn, you'll need to unmute yourself on your end.
Glenn tiene que desenmudarse de su lado.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm unmuted now. It's Glenn. How are you both?
Ya estoy desenmudado. ¿Cómo están los dos?
Hello,
We're good.
lady. Oh, good. Okay. Hi. I'm an older e-bike rider, and I was going to see if one of the qualifications could be people that are low income on SNAP. In other words, get food stamps, because that would be kind of the lower income that I think this is designed for, number one. And then number two, I wonder if there's any kind of a licensing thing that, you know, like a learner's permit or something that you think might help for safety prevention, because I'm always concerned about e-bike accidents. And I personally, because I'm older, I have insurance through a company called Velo Insurance, which is just like auto insurance for the bike, theft, collision, all that. And I think that might be a good program to implement as well.
Bien, entonces yo soy Glenn. Yo soy una persona que manejo las bicicletas electrónicas desde hace tiempo ya. Y yo lo que quería saber es que si quizás haya alguna cualificación, algo para las personas de bajos recursos, porque parece que esto es un programa para aquellas personas, quizás algo lo que le llaman el SNAP, que viene siendo como para personas que usan estampillas. Y por ejemplo, también quería saber si hay licencias, una licencia de aprendizaje que pueda dar el permiso para la persona que comience a aprender y a usar la bicicleta. Y también quería saber, bueno, yo soy una persona que tengo aseguranza, viene siendo, se llama Velo Insurance, esta es la aseguranza que yo uso y eso es para mi bienestar. Y es una aseguranza que provee programas contra colisión, cosas así. Quería saber quizás eso sería un programa que puede ser implementado. Go ahead.
Thank you, Glenn. So, as to your comment about it being like sort of having an income eligibility, like a categorical eligibility exemption, that is something that the other vehicle purchase incentive programs do have. And so if we were to align with the 400% federal poverty limit, we would also look into having the same categorical eligibility. Sorry, I don't 100% remember the second part of your question.
Oh, it was, SNAP. You know, if people are on low income and receiving SNAP or EBT or whatever you want to call it, food stamps, would that qualify them? Because those might be the people that need the help with the incentive the most.
So yeah, so that actually refers to the categorical eligibility component, where we have a set of social service programs that we that participants that apply to our other vehicle purchase incentive programs are involved in. I don't believe SNAP is one of them, but it's something we can definitely look into.
Okay, thank you. And then, you know, since we brought up the point on a lot of people, and I subscribe to Electric Bike Action magazine, and I think a lot of people that read the magazine need to know the progress of where we're at right now with the movement and the progress, and as far as signing up, and maybe you could address that, please.
Lisa, do you? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Jeanette.
Okay. Quiero saber si soy elegible con el ingreso que tengo o con la extensión, y también si puedo llegar a tener una participación. No sé si esto acomode al 100% de la cobertura o la elegibilidad. Lo siento, pero no estoy completamente segura del 100% de la segunda parte de tu pregunta. Sí, yo dije que el SNAP es más que todo una ayuda como las estampillas de comida o el EBT, que le ayuda a ver si, quiero saber si esto ayuda para que la mayoría de las personas estén elegibles o estén en la categoría, pero no sé. También me gustaría recalcar que las personas pueden estar interesadas o informadas leyendo algunas revistas para saber si hay algún progreso, por decirle algo. Back to you.
So we have actually recently, Glenn spoke with several different news outlets that have taken an interest in the program and are helping to get the word out about the process. And I think that that's very indicative of the amount of attendees today and all the great questions that we're getting, especially from public members. And so if there are other forums that folks want to advertise the work that we're doing in, that would be great.
Sí, también tenemos recientes o algunas noticias o formas de informar que puedan tener algún indicativo especialmente para los miembros del público. Y sí, les vamos a tener que decir un poco más acerca de esto. Back to you.
All right, our next speaker will be Tyrone. Tyrone, I am unmuting your line.
La próxima persona tenemos a Tyrone y voy a dejarte que quites el modo de mudo.
Hi, this is Ty Bell. I'm a air quality planner at the Monterey Bay Air Resources District. We actually just concluded our second iteration of a local e-bike incentive program. So I just wanted to kind of speak about how we did our income limits. We actually did the opposite. We did not accept folks' income documents. We just basically outsourced, as Glenn suggested. We just asked applicants to provide proof that they're already enrolled in a assistance program, such as SNAP, CalFresh, what have you. Primarily because it cuts down on our admin time. We didn't want to receive a bunch of income documents, tax documents that none of us here have any knowledge of analyzing. So it's just easier for us to have outsourced that to someone else. And low income is low income. And each program is unique. They have their own standards. Some of these programs is based on locale, right? Santa Cruz, Monterey, and our other county, San Benito, we all have different cost of living and income standards. So it's just easier for us to say, hey, just show us proof that you're already on WIC, CalFresh, SNAP. We will trust the vetting of these other government agencies.
Hola, mi nombre es Tyrone, soy uno de los responsables del distrito y no puedo decir esta vez que estamos pidiendo los documentos que prueben el nivel de ingreso, así como la prueba de si estás en SNAP o CalFresh. Eso quiere decir que el bajo ingreso es un bajo ingreso y en este tiempo no estamos pidiendo ese tipo de documentos. Así que si una vez usted está entre el ingreso estándar, es muy posible que podamos tener algo para ustedes.
And if I could make, I had one more comment. In terms of income limits, also another big red herring we would often run into is what is a household, right? Roommates, father, son, are they on separate income? So that really got us into a bind a few times. So another reason why we didn't want to evaluate incomes ourselves.
Una de las cosas que me gustaría señalar es que también tenemos un límite sobre el ingreso completo de una familia. Podría ser también si tienen una persona que están rentando con ustedes, eso también podría ser válido. Back to you.
Thank you, Ty. So I'll be really short. That's how they do it in the other programs, but and that is how I expect we do it in our program as well. We wouldn't require people to give us all of their income information if they have categorical eligibility, just proof that they're in that program. So thank you.
Muchas gracias, Tyron. Así como estamos, tenemos la base que si está en otro de nuestros programas, eso equivale también que puedes estar en el de nosotros. Así que estoy de acuerdo contigo, Tyron. Back to you.
Okay, I'm going to jump in and try to get through some of the questions that we've received in the Q&A, since we have several of them. And for Jeanette and Leticia, if you're able to open the Q&A box, you can go along with me. And I think the best game plan here is I will read and respond to each one and then offer an opportunity for you to translate.
Ahora lo que vamos a hacer es vamos a darle paso a las preguntas y respuestas. Para los intérpretes, Jeanette y Leticia, si podemos abrir la caja de preguntas y respuestas, podemos leerla directamente y así vamos a responder.
First comment is from Michael Williams. Is it true that the e-bike incentive program will be implemented by each of the local air pollution control districts and that they will have the ability to not choose to do so? That is not true. I'm not sure where that information came from, Michael. We have ran a solicitation for a single administrator. We have not yet announced who that administrator is, although fingers crossed that that announcement comes out very soon. We've been working really hard to get the information to everyone. So hopefully maybe we'll get to announce it in here. I don't know. But we will have an administrator announced soon, and it will be a single administrator. We do envision working with local community organizations, including the air districts that have an interest in working with us in implementing the program. But no, we will not be requiring them to do so.
La primera pregunta que tenemos en el cuadro de preguntas y respuestas viene de Michael Williams. Y dice, ¿es cierto que el programa de incentivo del e-bike puede ser implementado por cada una de las localidades para los distritos de control de polución del aire? Y si estos pueden ser habilitados para una escogencia, sí o no. No es cierto, no sabemos de dónde vino ese comentario, no es un anuncio que nosotros podemos tomar. Espero que si realmente nosotros no sabemos si estamos operando de esa forma, estamos teniendo una administración singular, también vamos a darle más información si alguna de las administraciones locales puedan implementar este tipo de programas.
Next comment from Jenna Scott. Particularly in California, where the cost of living is so high, wouldn't it make sense to at least base it on local median income rather than a federal baseline? Great comment, Jenna. We struggle with this issue across our other programs as well. However, right now we are kind of sticking with the federal baseline so that it's consistent with the other programs, but we continue to look at different ways that we could evaluate income to make the programs as smooth as possible.
La siguiente pregunta es de Jenna y está preguntando si esto es basado en una línea y si es consistente. Esta es una buena pregunta. Me gustaría decirle que este programa tiene que ver también con los otros programas que ya están existentes y también esto es estrictamente basado en una línea de tiempo y sí vamos a buscar como que sea más consistente en ese particular. Back to you.
The next two are comments. First from Steve Lee, I think the income limits should be lower or else you're subsidizing recreational e-bikes. And then from Edward, that means that an average teacher or scientist is left out. The limit seems very low in my opinion.
Las siguientes preguntas de Steve y Edward. La primera es que si creo que los ingresos, los límites deberían ser más bajos que el subsidiario de la parte recreacional de las e-bikes. Así que también tenemos a Edward Cruz que dice que necesita que este averaje sea aplicado para los científicos y maestros y que también sean aplicados para ver si tienen un ingreso más bajo, es mi opinión. Back to you.
Okay, the next question from Zubair Farki. I apologize if I did not pronounce it correctly. Those who do not qualify or meet the income criteria, is there any other option like a commuter program using electric bikes? There is. These programs already exist within our clean mobility options. We do offer incentives to local entities that are wanting to run electric bike sharing programs in conjunction with car sharing type programs. And we can provide a link to our clean mobility options program in the chat.
La siguiente pregunta es de Suber. La siguiente pregunta que tenemos aquí es sobre si hay alguna parte existente de este tipo de programas. Y sí hay. Sí hay. Tenemos una opción y vamos a ponerle el enlace también sobre este tipo de comentarios y más información en la caja de chat. Back to you.
Thank you. Just a note for folks, there are 33 questions still now remaining. More continue to come in and we'll do our best to get them all answered. But we do have a number of other slides and things we'd like to present. If we don't get to every question or hand raised today, then we will schedule another work group to pick up where we left off. With that, oh, go ahead.
Le queremos dejar saber a todos que tenemos en línea de espera entre 20 y 30 preguntas. Vamos a hacer lo mejor que podamos en responderle y si nos da tiempo también les vamos a dejar más información en la caja de chat.
The next question is from Todd Edelman. Do you have an idea of what percentage of households within the state may be eligible for the program based on your proposed income requirements? I don't have that off the top of my head, Todd. I do believe we do have some estimates like that. So we'll look into it.
La siguiente pregunta es de Todd Edelman. Si tienes alguna idea de qué porcentaje de los ingresos familiares están elegibles dentro del estado y el programa basado en la propuesta de los requerimientos de ingreso. No, realmente no tenemos idea, pero vamos a darle seguimiento a este tipo de inquietudes. Back to you.
I'm going to take two more that are comments in here and then pass it back to Andrea.
Voy a tomar dos preguntas más del comentario y después le voy a pasar el tiempo a Andrea.
First, from Jenna Scott, I agree with Susan. I think prioritizing households under a certain limit is vital, but limiting participants will also limit the number of trips we can replace with e-bikes.
El comentario es de Jenna Scott y dice, estoy de acuerdo con Susan y pienso que priorizando los ingresos de una familia puede estar bajo cierto límite y es vital, pero limitando también pueden limitar los participantes con el número de viajes que pueden reemplazar las bicicletas. Back to you.
And then last from Kent Epperson, are there the same income limits? Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yes. Are there the same income limits for other electric car rebates? If not, why are these only included in this e-bike incentive? It seems like the two programs should be consistent. It is consistent, Kent. The income limits that we're proposing would align with our other electric car rebate programs.
El siguiente comentario es de Ken Epperson. Dice, hay algunos, es el mismo límite de ingreso para las los rebates de de los carros eléctricos, sino cuál es lo que está incluido en este incentivo. Pareciera que hay dos programas de que deberían ser consistentes. Sí, estos dos programas son consistentes, definitivamente sí. Go ahead.
All right, our next, we'll go back to raised hands now, and our next speaker will be Debbie. Debbie, I'll unmute your line.
Ahora vamos a darle paso al siguiente presentador y su nombre es Debbie. Por favor, puede quitarse el modo de mudo.
Debbie, you may need to unmute yourself as well.
Debbie, has puesto el micrófono apagado.
Can you hear me?
¿Puedes escucharme?
Okay.
Yes.
Sí,
Hi.
sí.
So I really just have a couple of questions. Income limits. I'm recently retired, so I'm not familiar with any of these acronyms that you have of percentages and who does what. So I guess that's my first question. As a couple, what would it be? I'm not on any type of programs that you're talking about, SNAP or any other programs. So just because my income may be low and I'm not on those programs, I don't have a house payment and things like that. So it allows my income to be fairly low. And if you're just going by programs like SNAP and these other things that you don't need income for to qualify, how would I get involved in that?
Tengo un par de preguntas. Quisiera saber sobre el límite de los ingresos para estar dentro de estos programas. No estoy muy segura de qué se significa los programas de SNAP. En realidad no sé si esos yo califico o puedo calificar solamente teniendo estos programas. ¿Cómo podría hacer eso? ¿Cómo podría averiguar?
Thanks, Debbie. So you don't need to be involved in any of these programs, like any of these, SNAP or anything like that to be able to participate in this program. Through the process, there will be an income verification period where you will submit tax documents to the program administrator through that application process. I don't know the exact income amount for a family of two, so for you and your partner, but you can if you Google 400% federal poverty limit, it'll direct you to the federal government's page that sort of defines what that means.
And it is right around 60,000 a year for a family of two, I believe.
Okay. Okay, that's great.
Gracias, Debbie. No necesitas estar en ninguno de estos programas para ser elegible. Simplemente puedes presentar el reporte de tus impuestos junto con la aplicación y esto tiene que ver también con el reporte federal o del gobierno. Así que esto quiere decir que puede ser como más de 6,000. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for answering the question.
Gracias, muchas gracias por responder la pregunta.
Our next speaker will be Lorena. Lorena, I'm unmuting your line.
El siguiente presentador sería Lorena. Por favor, póngase en la línea, quítense el modo de mudo.
Okay, this is Lorena. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I was curious to know, I just verified the income limit. It is like for one person, it's only $1,300. I mean, 13,000 a year. But the next question I had is about the trade-in program. I'd heard about that for my automobile and for electric car.
Tengo
Lorena, what is your question? Are you interested in
Well,
learning about the program?
Well, I'd like to know about that option since it seems like the income limit is very low for qualifying, even though I'm on disability, for qualifying for this program for the electric bike. And is that another project where I have to contact someone else about the trade-in for vehicles in exchange for an electric bicycle?
Solamente estoy curiosa para saber cómo verificar los ingresos. Creo que si califico con un ingreso de 13,000 al año, creo que sigue 13,000 al año. Y si con este programa hay algún tipo de entrenamiento o se puede hacer algún intercambio, si estamos hablando de las opciones. Lorena, ¿podrías por favor decirme cuál es tu pregunta? Bueno, yo lo que estoy pidiendo es si puedo tener una opción y si puedo calificar, si es algún otro proyecto o si esto es para intercambiar el proyecto de lo que estamos hablando de los carros eléctricos también. Back to you.
It doesn't have anything to do with electric cars. That's what I heard in the interpretation.
No estoy diciendo nada sobre los carros eléctricos. Eso fue lo que escuché en la interpretación.
Thank you, Lorena. So I think the program that you're referring to is Clean Cars for All. If you drop your email into the question and answer box, we can definitely direct you to the right people to talk to. But we're the electric bicycle incentive project, so we don't deal with scrapping vehicles at all. This is purely an incentive, no scrap required program.
Muchas
Right.
gracias.
I thought I had read somewhere that that was another way to get money towards credit for purchasing a electric bicycle. So Clean Cars for All is under what department? Is it the State Department with California?
Let's let the translator respond first.
Gracias por su pregunta, Lorena, por tu pregunta. Vamos a dirigirlo a la persona correcta que puede darle más información de todo lo que hemos hablado y si habría alguna otra manera de cómo tener este programa con las bicicletas eléctricas y también sobre el otro programa que haya sobre de los carros que sea limpio en ese sentido.
Lorena, CARB does oversee the Clean Cars for All program, which would allow
Exactly.
you to.
That's what I
right,
was asking.
Yes, so it would allow you to scrap a car and receive an e-bike in addition to other things. But like Aria said, if you can send us your email address, we are absolutely happy to get you in touch with the program staff that oversee it. I work with them daily. And I actually might have your email from the registration, but just to be safe, if you can send it to me in the Q&A, I can record it for you, or you can reach out to Aria or I via our email, which is at the end of the slides.
Okay, I'm not really familiar with, I even had a lot of trouble logging in. So where would it be in a chat box that I would put the information?
Yeah, or you can just email me if you'd like, and I'll spell out my email address for you. It's Lisa McCumber, so it's L-I-S.
Oh yes, I wrote your name's listed, so I have
Great.
LISAMACUMBER.
Correct. So it'll be lisa.mcumber@arb.ca.gov.
Okay, thank you. And one last question, as I had read earlier, and since I logged in fairly late, I had remembered reading something about you on top of the income. You also had to live in an economically disadvantaged zip code on top of the income in order to qualify for the program of the Electric Bicycle Incentives Project.
That,
Let- Ari, let's let the
oh,
translator.
I'm sorry, yes, my apologies.
Y estos programas también tienen que ver con lo de los clean cars y si por favor me puede mandar un correo electrónico. Creo que ya lo tenemos aquí en el tiempo que usted se registró, pero era solamente por seguridad, pero me lo puede mandar por favor. Mi correo electrónico es mi nombre completo, lisa.mackenberg@arb.fa.gov. También tengo una última pregunta. No estoy segura si ya lo había dicho anteriormente en la parte cumbre de lo que tiene que ver con los ingresos económicamente, si hay algún programa que tiene que ver con la desventaja de los ingresos, si no es igual a este tipo de programa. Go ahead.
Thank you. So this program is statewide. This will not be location limited. The Electric Bicycle Incentives Project will not be region or location limited, other than you have to be in the state of California. It's the only limit.
Okay,
Este-
great.
Este
Adelante,
programa-
señora. Sí.
Este programa es exactamente de seguridad amplia y creo que solamente se dirige en el estado de California.
I would also like to clarify the federal poverty level guidelines. And there is some confusion if you were to just Google them. So I will drop a link in the chat, recognizing not everybody will be able to access that. And we will make it available on our website where the materials for today was at. But to clarify, at 400% federal poverty level, a single individual, the income threshold is $51,520, or just $51,000 to make it simple here. For a family of 4, it's $106,000, and then for a family of 2, it's 69. So I was close earlier, but not quite on the head. So once again, family of 1 is 51,000, family of 2 is just under 70,000, and a family of 4 is 106,000. Those are the limits that we're discussing.
Great.
Bien, entonces, hablando acerca de las guías, eso lo voy a bajar en un momento en la caja del chat y lo voy a hacer disponible para los materiales, pero para clarificar un poco más, es $51,520 es para un individual, $606,000 es para una familia de 4 y 79,000 es para una familia de 2. Y de nuevo para una familia individual, 51,000 para una familia, 106,000 para familia de 4 y un poco abajo de 80,000 para familia de 2. Go ahead.
Thank you, Lorena. Our next speaker will be
Oh,
Tom.
I have one more question. Sorry. Is there a copy of this project that we're talking about to see what it, because all I have is a copy of the incentives project, the group meeting, but not of the actual project itself. Is there somewhere we can go to see that?
Muchas gracias, Lorena. Y ahora para el siguiente persona que va a presentar. Bueno, tengo una pregunta más. Y mi pregunta es, ¿hay alguna copia de este proyecto de lo que estamos hablando? Porque solamente tengo una copia de la junta del grupo, pero no actualmente del proyecto a sí mismo. ¿Ustedes tienen eso? Go ahead.
Thank you. So all of the project information to date is posted on our website. And Andrea, if you could drop that link into the chat again, that would be great. And there will be the recording of this meeting will be posted in about 2 weeks. And once we have a grantee in place and a website launched, that will also be a resource for anyone who's interested in learning more about the program.
Okay, thank you very much. And that's all.
Thank you, Lorena.
Entonces, I'm
You're
sorry,
welcome.
give me one second. Entonces, para toda esta información que estamos dando el día de hoy, va a estar en nuestro sitio web y eso lo podemos bajar también a la caja de chat. La grabación de esta junta va a estar puesta alrededor de algunas 2 semanas cuando ya lo tengamos en lugar y también en el sitio web, lo cual va a ser un recurso para cualquier persona que siga interesado en aprendiendo acerca de esto. Go ahead.
Our next speaker will be Todd. Todd, I'm unmuting your line. Todd, it appears that you're using an outdated version of Zoom. So I'd ask that you put your question in the Q&A box and we'll be sure to get to it, or try restarting your Zoom.
Bueno, el siguiente presentador va a ser Todd. Todd, si usted puede desenmudar su micrófono. Parece que usted está usando una versión de Zoom, de la plataforma de Zoom que está fuera de tiempo. Si usted pudiera poner su pregunta en la caja del Q y el A o tratar de comenzar la plataforma de Zoom. Go ahead.
Our next speaker will be Sherry. Sherry, I'm unmuting your line.
I was just wondering when this program is slated to begin.
La siguiente presentadora va a ser Sherry, o la persona que va a hablar va a ser Sherry, si puede desenmudar su línea. Bueno, yo solamente estaba pensando cuándo este programa va a ser subido en línea. Go ahead.
Thank you. We're aiming to launch a consumer-facing program, so a program where you can apply for the e-bike incentive in the first quarter of 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Bueno, estamos esperando para poder subir este programa prontamente el primer trimestre del año 2023. Bien, gracias.
Our next speaker will be Victoria. Victoria, I'm unmuting your line.
Hello, thank you. This is Victoria Choi from Sacramento Area Council of Governments. And I wanted to add a note of caution about adding barriers such as work trip replacement for applying for this incentive. And that's because for that specific example, requiring that it replace a work trip is going to be geared towards people with trips that can be made to or from work safely, such as working a conventional 9 to 5 when it's going to be light outside for both your trip in and your trip back, or living close enough to your job that biking is an option, whereas many people are priced out of a bikeable distance. And one last part to consider is that providing childcare could be a full-time job for people, and they would still have need to help move kids to and fro, possibly replacing a vehicle trip. But would that count under a work trip replacement requirement? That is all. Thank you.
Bueno, ahora la siguiente presentadora me parece que va a ser Victoria. Victoria, si usted puede desenmudar su micrófono. Bueno, sí, soy Victoria, soy de Sacramento y soy de la Consejería del Gobierno. Solamente yo quería agregar una nota de caución de agregando barreras para nuestro cliente para poder incentivar. Esto, por ejemplo, sería dado a las personas que se llevan a sus trabajos, por ejemplo, un trabajo de 9 a 5 de la tarde, en donde va a haber luz afuera, o quizás alguien tenga un trabajo que esté cerca lo suficiente para si quieren usar su bicicleta y que vaya a ser una opción donde pueda hacer una distancia donde se puede usar la bicicleta. Y una última parte en considerar es proveyendo, por ejemplo, el cuidado de los niños. Pudiera ser un trabajo de tiempo completo para mover a los niños y para que sea aprobado posiblemente reemplazando un viaje de vehículo. Eso sería algo en donde pudiera ser contado bien en este tiempo. Eso es todo. Gracias. Go ahead.
Thank you, Victoria, for your comments.
Muchas gracias, Victoria, por sus comentarios.
Our next speaker will be Peter. Peter, I'm unmuting your line.
El siguiente presentador va a ser Peter. Peter, le estoy desamudando su micrófono.
It appears, one moment, please.
Parece, déjenme un momento, por favor.
Okay, my name is Peter, and I'm in Santa Barbara County. I have 4 thoughts with a couple questions weaved in. I think the approach for this incentive should be to reduce vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions. So people in the mid-income category might be the biggest contributors there. I'm wondering if there's data, if there are data showing low-income single occupant vehicle travelers are the largest contributors. And to put this into perspective, and maybe check the math here, but 2 $18 per hour full-time employees in a household wouldn't qualify for this incentive. And that rules out a lot of service workers like food prep, hospitality workers in our region. So it's my opinion that this should be maybe tied to a living wage rather than the 400% poverty level. And then another thought regarding age that was mentioned earlier. I want to add that retired folks make plenty of trips that contribute to those issues previously mentioned. Mobility options for seniors along the Central Coast are limited. It's my opinion that we need to add options and should not restrict options for the retired population for that reason. Another thought, education. I think the best way to identify participants that might switch from driving is through direct outreach. Our region and soon other Central Coast areas, thanks to CalBike, offer a free demo program where community members can take a bike home for a week to see how it can replace a typical vehicle trip. Are there any considerations to include an educational component to this program? That's the second question. And then in regards to the license requirement, it's my opinion that adding insurance license requirements is counterproductive, especially for the low income goals stated here. It's my opinion that reaching the low income and disadvantaged communities is hard enough when requirements are nominal. Thank you.
Bien, entonces la siguiente persona que va a hablar viene siendo Peter. Bueno, mi nombre es Peter, yo estoy en el condado de Santa Bárbara. Tengo algunos 4 pensamientos y algunas preguntas que creo que el enfoque para este incentivo sería para más mejor reducir los vehículos de casas verdes, los vehículos que dan las emisiones. Entonces yo creo que eso sería más más grande para las personas que suelen más a viajar por vehículo. Serían las personas más grandes en contribuir acerca de esto. Serían puestos a un porcentaje de cantidades en una casa, de una vivienda de unas personas. No sería al igual para este incentivo. Viene sacando a varias personas y varias cosas que las personas hacen fuera de esta región. En mi opinión, eso no debería de ser hacia los 400% que estaban dando anteriormente por la pobreza y el nivel de la edad y las personas que son retiradas, también que, por ejemplo, que dan varios viajes y que han dado personas que también son de más alta edad. Es mi opinión que no se deberían de ser hechos a un lado para afuera y no restringirnos en esa manera, también hacer el alcance directo hacia quizás en educación. Y hay otras áreas, por ejemplo, en las áreas de costa, en donde hay personas que se pueden tomar una bicicleta. Bueno, hay unos programas en donde hay unas personas que se pueden tomar una bicicleta por una semana como para ver cómo es que va a funcionar eso. Eso puede ser tomado en consideración para este programa. Y acerca de las licencias, de que vayan a ser un requerimiento, parece que va a ser algo contraproducente y puede ser una desventaja para las comunidades, como ya parece que todo ha sido lo difícil suficiente como ha sido hasta ahora. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So thank you for your feedback and input. We had an answer. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat your second question? Because I had an answer to that and I just completely escaped my mind. I'm so sorry.
The second question was in regards to education. Are there considerations to include an educational component?
So part of the funding, part of the budget allocation said that we should set aside up to 10% could be set aside for a safety component or an education and safety component. So that is something that we will be discussing at a future meeting.
Bien, entonces muchas gracias por sus entradas, por lo que nos ha dado el día de hoy. Y bueno, mis disculpas, tenía una respuesta para contestarle. ¿Qué fue lo que era su segunda pregunta? Porque tenía una respuesta completa para esto, pero ¿qué fue su pregunta? Bueno, la segunda pregunta fue acerca de la educación, ¿cómo va a ser incluido? Bueno, entonces para ser incluido, sí tenemos parte de esto de que estamos planeando poner un 10% que sea a un lado puesto para un componente que va a ser parte de la educación. Go ahead.
Thank you, Peter. Our next speaker will be Victor. Victor, I'm unmuting your line.
Hi, this is Victor Vegas with Comité Cívico del Valle in Nampon. We're in Imperial County. So I have more than a question, I have a couple of comments because I believe we have to make sure to prioritize the low income families with a real incentive. And I mean a grant, not a rebate, and probably at least 50%. They're not cheap and or $500 maybe, because bikes are used more for people who can't afford a car, or if they have a car, it's not in a good shape. So those cars are the ones we want to take out of the roads first, because usually they get their bikes at swap meet when they get a bike, right? And so that's I believe that you should consider that. And because the low income families will not acquire an EV anytime soon. And I'm telling this because we are at Comité Cívico del Valle, we're doing outreach for the CVRP or the EVs incentives, and we haven't seen any much people who apply for these incentives because simply they can afford an electric vehicle at this time. And this population is I believe is around 50% of the population lives under the FPL, and at least 25% of the population lives with an extreme poverty, is considered lives in extreme poverty. So that's why I'm doing these comments. And also because I think it's important to promote the bicycle use culture as a good and efficient transportation vehicle, because most of the people believe the bicycle is for you just entertain or most for the kids, not for adults. And also as well to add more bike lanes. I think that the last 2 points might be something for our local government, but on the incentive, I believe needs to be a real incentive because people will not apply for this incentive if it's not a real benefit for them. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh,
Entonces,
I can translate myself if you want, but don't worry. I'm sorry. So, muy bien. Quiero nada más comentar que debería de ser deberían de priorizar a las personas, a las familias de bajos ingresos con un incentivo real, que sea una beca o un dinero por adelantado, no un reembolso, ya que algo promedio de 50% o unos $500 del costo de una bicicleta, ya que no son muy económicas tampoco. Las bicicletas son usadas más por las personas que no pueden comprar un vehículo, un carro, y si tienen un carro no son un vehículo confiable, están en muy malas condiciones y precisamente estos vehículos son los que queremos retirar de las calles principalmente, ya que son los que más contaminan, porque son vehículos viejos y no están en buenas condiciones. Por otro lado, las personas que usan las bicicletas regularmente las compran en un swap meet, entonces son familias de muy bajos ingresos y no van a poder comprar o no van a invertir en un vehículo eléctrico en los próximos años, ¿verdad? Porque simplemente está fuera de sus posibilidades. Por otro lado, también es importante promover la cultura del uso de la bicicleta como un medio de transporte eficiente y que se definan más líneas o ciclovías en las carreteras de uso exclusivo para bicicletas. And thank you.
muchas gracias, Víctor, que se tomó el tiempo para interpretar esta parte. Le agradezco.
No hay problema. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Victor.
Before we go to the next raised hand, I want to flag just a couple things. We do have about 50 or so questions in the Q&A. Given that we only have about 40 minutes left, it's not likely that we will be able to respond to all of them. And we do have to read them for the benefit of everybody in the meeting before we respond, unless it's just a technical question. That said, any questions we don't get to tonight, we will do our best to record and we'll have to go back to the drawing board and find a way to make sure that we're able to answer all of your questions such that you all can see what those responses are. So we'll work on that and hopefully get you answers very soon.
Bien, entonces, antes de pasar hacia la siguiente parte, sí quería dar cuenta de que hay varias manos levantadas, alrededor de 50 más o menos, hay de preguntas. Y entonces, dado de que solamente tenemos acerca de 40 minutos que nos sobran, no es lo más seguro de que vamos a poder responder a todos, al menos de que sean preguntas técnicas. Y habiendo dicho esto, ya las preguntas de que no lleguemos a hacerlo en esta tarde, sería más mejor a regresar a la tablera de escribir, por decir, y vamos a poder mirar qué fueron esas respuestas ahí. Vamos a continuar a trabajar en esto. Esperemos ya más adelantado, más después. Go ahead.
Our next speaker will be Douglas. Douglas, I'll unmute your line.
Douglas, are you there? Can you hear us?
So I believe that Douglas had requested a translation service for today, and we unfortunately did not receive the message for that. And so I've been working with him offline to try to mediate. Douglas, I apologize if you are able to hear or understand this. If it helps, I'm not sure if promoting you to panelist to allow you to use camera would help. Why don't I do that?
Bien, entonces parece que Douglas él había pedido para el servicio de la interpretación o translación el día de hoy, pero parece que no obtuvimos ese mensaje de él anteriormente. Entonces, mis disculpas. Douglas, si usted puede escuchar esto o entenderlo, quizás lo podemos promoverlo a panelista y quizás usted puede usar su cámara ahí. Go ahead.
There we go. Douglas?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Doug Vigil, and I am also on the board of San Joaquin, the vice president of San Joaquin Board of Education. And my big concern is that a teenager that had DUI, have kind of like have, going to school with their car, and all of a sudden they either, got into an accident or got license suspended or whatever maybe. And I was wondering if there also be teenager program for them to take e-bike to school as well, in any suggestion, and for the youth as well, and also for the community as well, because I'm more concerned. For me, as the people with disability, I know that when I use my car, I usually drive my car out like down the block to the store. You know what I mean? And sometime this like a couple of weeks ago, I almost got into an accident. Because somehow everybody's in a hurry to go somewhere, and so I rather like leave my car. Why waste gas where I could take a bike and get some food or some fruit or whatever locally around, and take the bike. I mean, where I need to go instead of burning gas and burning fuel and air quality days. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that. I mean, I've been an advocate for a while for having e-bike. I've been searching online, like comparing e-bike, and they're expensive. They come between 4,000 to 1,000 is the cutoff most. You know what I mean? And so it's really interesting how that something like air quality is very vital to for our health. And yet it makes it so expensive. Like we have our eating healthy is the same thing. Eating healthy, a salad costs $10. When you buy a hamburger, it's 99 cents. Which when you're gonna get the value, and to make it more healthy. Same thing with the e-bike or a e-car or whatever. That's something that we all must try to much we can for our economic and people to focus on air quality. That's all. Thank you.
Bien. Entonces, parece que ya está Douglas. Sí, sí está. Bueno, muy prontamente. Yo soy parte de la Junta de la Educación y muy prontamente mi preocupación es para aquellos que son adolescentes, para aquel niño o niña que tenga un DUI, lo que es el DUI, la persona que vaya a ir a la escuela con un carro o que se esté actuando algo como que si esté pensando que es un niño, un adolescente. Bueno, quiero decir, hay un programa para ellos, para que tomen las bicicletas eléctricas a la escuela, o hay una sugerida al igual para las comunidades. Yo más bien tengo preocupación para mí mismo, para personas como yo con disabilidades. Yo sé de que cuando yo uso mi carro, yo voy hacia abajo de la calle, un bloque, voy a la tienda y como hace apenas algunas 2 semanas yo fui a la tienda y casi me metí en un accidente. Y era algo de una manera porque iba en un apuro, eh, iba a ir a agarrar algo, pero bueno, yo prefiero más bien dejar mi carro porque gastar el gas y porque si yo pudiera solamente salir localmente y no tenga yo que ir a mi carro donde tenga que quemar el gas, usar combustible y luego afecta la calidad del aire. Y bueno, usted sabe, yo definitivamente yo pienso y yo soy una advocata y yo he estado buscando recientemente en línea a las bicicletas eléctricas y he visto que están casi hasta $4,000, un promedio de $1,000. Y entonces yo le puedo decir, esto es la mayoría de las cosas que yo quería decir, quería hablar acerca de esto, porque yo he tenido algo de interés, algo como, algo que viene siendo bueno para nuestra salud, aún como salir afuera, comer algo saludable, viene siendo la misma, porque ya si uno prefiere comer como, por ejemplo, una hamburguesa y lo saca de lo que es el valor del dólar, lo que es más barato, la hamburguesa le sale a 99 centavos. Y bueno, es lo mismo con las bicicletas electrónicas o el carro electrónico, es para las personas de calidad. Y bueno, eso es solamente lo que yo quería decir. Gracias.
Thank you, Douglas, for your comments.
Muchas gracias por sus comentarios.
Andrea, next name.
Sure, our next commenter will be Brett. Brett, I'm unmuting your line.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Brett Zuner, and I just want to provide my comment. I'm pulling it up. So I guess for me, just hearing all of this, I definitely go to what is the goal of the project. And to me, and I think a lot of others here, and based on the public kind of positions that CARB has taken, folks on this call have taken, like equity is our goal here. And I think we all feel very strongly about that. And so I would advise strongly against this carbon tunnel vision that gets brought up in a lot of these spaces. You know, we're not here because of a carbon atom bonded to 2 oxygen atoms. We're having this call because quality of life issues, climate resilience, transportation inaccessibility. And with that, you know, I'm worried a bit about the, based on the math that I did, it looks like if we did just the base incentive amount of 750, that's about 10,000 e-bikes. That's not that many when we think about how large our state is and the demonstrated need for mobility access. And so to me, that just screams this program needs to be tailored, hyper tailored to folks who need it the most. And I ran the numbers. If only a third of every applicant meets the enhanced incentive threshold, that's only 7,500 e-bikes provided, which is gives even more credence to the fact that we need a really tailored approach here. And you know, I think people on the call have mentioned, you know, that assistance for middle income earners and God forbid assistance for people who make a lot of money or have stock portfolios and own their homes and have a lot of assets. But I digress. If we do want to think about that, you know, we really need to invest time and energy and thoughtfulness and care into structuring and designing these incentive programs. I think e-bikes should be no different. you know, the 400% FPL is based off of Clean Cars for All and CVAP and CVRP, Clean Vehicle Assistance Program and the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, sorry, the acronyms. But Clean Cars for All does have a tiered incentive structure. And I think that that's really smart. And I think here, I just want to highlight the example of marginal utility of income, you know, $100 to somebody who makes $500 a week. That has much greater benefit than $100 to somebody who makes $1,000 a week. And so I think that that mathematics needs to be accounted here. I know the folks at CARB, there's policy wonks there who also have equity, you know, at the forefront of their work. It's possible to do. I ran some numbers and just looking at, you know, this kind of tiered approach, if you look at people's income, how much of their income should they be asked to spend on an e-bike? If they're making $35,000 and they spend 1.5% of their income, that's $525. Average cost of an e-bike is $2,000, incentives about $1,500. But somebody who makes 60K, granted, they should spend a little bit more of their income on this because the marginal utility, and then they get less of a incentive amount. So I do think like it's okay to think about different income thresholds. California is expensive as hell and wages have gone up, but they can't be getting the same amount as somebody who's making minimum wage. That's just unacceptable. And I don't think that's the goal here. I'm just voicing it and putting it on the record. I'm also worried about retailers and e-bike manufacturers raising prices of the e-bikes. We've seen this time and time again with electric vehicle manufacturers in response to federal and state incentives. You know, Economic Policy Institute just came out with a report. 54% current inflation is attributable to increases in corporate profit margin. Only 8% is attributable to wage inflation. So corporate profits are driving the inflation in this country, and that's demonstrated by data. And I'm sorry, but I feel like if we're talking about who needs to help make these bikes affordable, let's look at their balance sheets. Let's look at profit margins. If people are making a killing off e-bikes, maybe we need to rethink this whole economic model. Because again, this is about equity and helping people who need it. And our purchasing power dwindles as profit margins increase, as I just said. So we really need to be thinking about this in the whole sense of what we're dealing with. And I'm also worried about the last thing is regional disparities in outreach and engagement. I got the email about the applicant that was just selected who's based out of San Diego, and I'm unable to ascertain their meaningful statewide reach based on what I could see. Seems like they have a great presence in San Diego and Southern Orange County. But I do just want to highlight that the statewide reach is important here.
Brett, I'm so sorry. We don't mean to interrupt. We need to let the translator.
Sure thing. And I'll send all of this to you too with the written out, because I think that that would be helpful. So thank you so much.
El siguiente comentario que tenemos es de Brent. Sí, gracias por la oportunidad, y lo que quería decir es acerca de la posición basada en el carbono que está seriamente, y estamos viendo que es demasiado fuerte, y también tenemos la visión de que la...
You muted yourself, Jeanette.
Oh, I'm sorry. También estamos viendo la posición del carbono, y estamos teniendo una fuerte posición en esto, y también tenemos la visión de que las fronteras del carbono y el oxígeno han traspasado la accesibilidad basado en el mapa que he estado revisando. También puedo mencionar que hay aproximadamente como 10,000 e-bikes. Y esto demuestra las necesidades que tenemos, el acceso a movilizarnos también. He corrido los números y es un aproximado de 700,000 que pueden ser proveídas, y también no solamente podemos hablar sobre el bajo ingreso, pero también tenemos que ver en que el punto de las inversiones en cuanto a la energía y programas de diseño basado en los vehículos limpios, por así decirlo. pero también en los incentivos de estos carros limpios, que realmente podría ser un programa bastante inteligente, pero analizando el ingreso marginal, estamos viendo que algunas familias o personas que puedan tener un aproximado o estimado de 1,000 por semana, esto puede tener la posibilidad de que si estamos viendo solamente los ingresos bajos, hay un estimado de que si una persona o una familia pueda tener los gastos de 35,000 al año y 35,000 al año en ingresos, por ejemplo, y se gasta el 1.5, eso es como un averaje. Así que podemos hacer una comparación entre los ingresos marginales y eso sería lo que yo estoy viendo aquí, que eso va más allá también. Tenemos que revisar muchas otras cosas y yo le voy a mandar, lo sentimos mucho, pero tenemos que darle el tiempo al intérprete. Si voy a mandar más información, ya tengo el correo electrónico. Gracias.
Thank you, Jeanette. And thank you for your comments, Brett. Look forward to seeing the other comments that you have for us. But for those that had not seen it, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've been very hopeful to be able to provide an announcement regarding who the administrator will be for the program. And it was brought to our attention that that announcement did go out while we've been in this meeting. So without further ado, for folks that have been following along, we did run a solicitation for an administrator to help support implementing this program. The administrator will be actually providing the incentives. They'll be the ones working day to day with bike shops and with consumers. And CARB will continue to set the policy for the program. And the preliminary administrator that we have selected is named Pedal Ahead, and they're based out of San Diego. We're very excited to get our partnership up and running. We are still in the process of finalizing a grant and getting it executed. So no work with our administrator will begin until that happens. But again, our focus right now is setting the higher policy goals of the program and criteria of the program. And then we'll work with the administrator in the coming months to really finalize the details of how we will get the incentives out the door.
Muchas gracias por su comentario y lo que vamos a hacer un estimado, una evaluación y vamos a correr una solicitud y que pueda ser de ayuda y de apoyo actual y que provea incentivos a todos los consumidores a que compren más, a que tengan el acceso a estas e-bikes y también vamos a tratar de tener algún acercamiento con los administradores y que sean selectivos basados aquí en San Diego y que tengan un convenio y que no se tarde más de algunas semanas y que el administrador pueda ver qué es lo que está pasando y que también resalten o que se enmarquen en las políticas de estos programas. Back to you.
Thank you. I'd also like to pause where we're at in the meeting for a moment, given that we do have so many hands and so many comments and questions, and we are down to under 20 minutes left for tonight. We also do have a number of slides still to cover. So we're going to pivot a little bit. I'm going to ask Aria in a moment here to finish running through the slides just so that everybody can see what we're thinking right now. We recognize fully that it will prompt more questions. And again, we're going to rethink how really to run this forum in a more efficient manner next time. I also want to acknowledge that we recognize that there were other requests for translation services that didn't come through, and I apologize for that. Please, if you can, let us know in advance so that we can try to take the time to do that. And for those frustrated with the timing of us being able to respond, given the translations here. I apologize. The meeting had been set up to allow a separate Spanish channel, and we don't know what happened, but that separate channel is not available for some reason. So please bear with us while we continue to work through these comments. I'm going to pause there. I have a few more announcements I'll make.
Voy a darle paso a poner, voy a postear aquí para en esta reunión para que miremos cómo vamos, y voy a compartir también una diapositiva y que queremos saber qué es lo que estamos pensando en este momento y de qué manera más eficiente podemos avanzar en este momento. Así que por favor, déjenos saber de adelantado si necesitan algún servicio de interpretación o de traducción. Lo sentimos, mis disculpas que tuvimos un problema técnico y no tenemos un canal separado para la interpretación o la traducción. En este momento no lo tenemos disponible, así que voy a darle paso a compartirles esta diapositiva. Back to you.
Okay, two other themes I want to cover before passing back to Aria to finish slides is amongst all of the questions that I've received in the Q&A chat, there is a theme of frustration around timing for getting the program launched. And I just wanted to address that for a moment. We received $10 million to run this program late summer of last year. And typically for a state agency, it takes anywhere from 1 to 2 years to get a program off of the ground. There was no work that had been done prior to that appropriation of funds. And we were asked to enact the program by July 1st of this year, and our board approved, and thus enacting the program back in November. I recognize fully that sounds like a technicality, but we are a bureaucracy, and we are working as fast as we can. We know that there is a lot of interest for this program. We know some folks have been waiting a long time to see incentives for electric bikes. We're very excited to have the funding. We're very excited to develop the program, and we're doing our best to get it started as quickly as we can. But it is complex, and so we are going to continue to work through the issues and take as much feedback as we can so that we are comfortable and the public is ready for us when we launch the program, so the program can be as successful as possible.
Una de las cosas que quiero también mencionar dentro de esto es que también tenemos espacios y que hemos recibido también los fondos. Estamos por recibir, hemos señalado la cantidad de 10 millones para los programas que están sido los últimos y que sean dentro del estado, estos programas para la preparación también. Lo sentimos que hemos estado teniendo esto, lo hemos mencionado desde julio y también desde el año pasado, y hemos tenido algunos inconvenientes hablando técnicamente. Hemos tratado de hacerlo lo más rápido posible, pero todo lo que podemos decir es que ya estamos en el programa de las bicicletas eléctricas y queremos recalcar que ya tenemos los fondos y necesitamos lo más pronto posible las opiniones. Mientras más opiniones tengamos, es mucho mejor todavía. Back to you.
Great, thank you. Aria, why don't we finish slides, and whatever time remains, we can take more questions.
All right, thank you.
Hemos terminado con la diapositiva. Mientras más rápido tengamos las preguntas, tenemos las respuestas aquí.
Thank you, Lisa. So moving on to the next slide, I'd like to discuss incentive amounts. Similar to other programs, we're proposing starting off with a base amount. Based on discussions with other e-bike project program administrators, we're suggesting a $750 incentive. We also understand, and that's just for bicycles, for electric bicycles, excuse me. We also understand that cargo bikes, as well as adaptive and recumbent e-bikes, are significantly more expensive than a standard commuter or hybrid bike, which is why we would also propose an additional $750 for those types of bikes. Lastly, we would like to consider additional funding for either individuals with incomes under 225% of the federal poverty limit, so similar to how the Clean Cars for All program runs their incentive levels, or those living in a disadvantaged community.
Continuando con la próxima diapositiva, vamos a hablar sobre las cantidades del incentivo basado en este tipo de bicicleta. Hemos percibido que la cantidad base para las bicicletas eléctricas son de 750 y también hay un adicional para las bicicletas de carga también que puedan tener el equipo y de pasajero también, y estamos hablando de un monto adicional y como otro tipo de fondos adicionales que también incluye a los individuos con ingresos por debajo del 225% de los FPL federal, de los cargos federales, o también que aplica para los residentes de las comunidades en desventajas. Back to you.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to discuss, there we go. Next, I'd like to discuss eligible electric bicycles. We are proposing to include Class 1 and Class 2 e-bikes, but exclude Class 3 e-bikes. This is going to be a new program, and there's a lot of controversy around Class 3 e-bikes and their safety as it relates to other cyclists as well as pedestrians.
La siguiente diapositiva es sobre las bicicletas eléctricas y la elegibilidad. Lo primero es basado en las clases de bicicletas eléctricas, y esto incluye también la clase 1, que eso limita a la velocidad de 20 millas por hora. También excluye a la clase 3, que tiene un tope de 28 millas por hora y también con asistencia de pedal. Y en la inclusión también estamos hablando de la clase 2, que tiene un límite de 20 millas por hora y también tiene la funcionalidad de tener las dos asistencias de pedal y también de trote. Back to you.
Thank you. Next, I would like to discuss the participating retailers. We understand that the chain supply struggles that e-bike manufacturers and most industries have experienced throughout the pandemic. In one of the first work groups for this project, we discussed limiting retailer participation to only local bike shops, but heard from a lot of you that we should include online e-bike retailers. As a result, staff is suggesting that we work with both local bike shops and online e-bike retailers with a physical presence in California. By physical presence, we mean that there is either a physical shop, that their manufacturing is done in California, or that they have their corporate office in California.
En la siguiente diapositiva vamos a hablar sobre los consumidores que están participando, y esto conlleva a recalcar a los lugares para comprar, los lugares locales de bicicleta. Esto incluye también, limita solamente a la parte local y también todos los detallistas con una presencia física aquí en California, que tengan una tienda física, y también otra que haya con los fabricantes basados en California y oficinas de corporaciones basados en California. Back to you.
Thank you. So we've already announced who our selected grantee is, and we expect that a consumer-facing program, we're aiming to launch that in the first quarter of 2023.
Esto como fecha límite también ya habíamos anunciado y seleccionado las garantías. También esto es para los consumidores que están enfrentando programas que se van a empezar a lanzar en el primer trimestre del 2023. Back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to skip the next slide because we're going to open it up for questions and comments if we have time at the end. Our next steps. We're working on getting the administrator on board. Once they are onboarded, we will work with them to develop terms and conditions as well as the process for applying. We'll hold another work group later this fall to finalize program parameters, but we will also hold another work group before that to continue this discussion. And we will evaluate the forum in which we do that. Finally, we'll work with the selected grantee to develop the application platform. And please definitely keep an eye out for the Gov delivery notice of our next work group.
Voy a saltarme la próxima diapositiva por el tiempo que tenemos y vamos a hablar sobre los próximos pasos. Vamos a dirigirnos directamente con el administrador del consejo y eso conlleva al desarrollo de las condiciones y los procesos que se van a aplicar y también es el otro grupo de trabajo para finalizar estos programas y los parámetros. Estamos esperando que sea hasta final de este otoño y para el desarrollo y la aplicación de la plataforma también. Back to you.
Thank you. I'm going to put up our contact, the slide with our email addresses. Please feel free to email, reach out via email to either myself or Lisa. And also, if you haven't subscribed to our listserv, this link at the bottom is the best place to hear announcements about upcoming work groups or any other announcements that we have about this project. Lisa, Jeanette, it's back to you, and then Lisa, back to you.
Okay, thank you. Ahora voy a poner la manera como pueden contactarse con nosotros. Por favor, siéntase libre de comunicarse, enviarnos correo electrónico, ya sea a mí o a Lisa. Y también el enlace que están viendo en la parte baja de su pantalla es el mejor lugar donde ustedes pueden escuchar sobre nuevos anuncios o discusiones. Back to you, Lisa.
Great. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and kick to Andrea. Let's see if we can help answer a couple more hands raised questions.
Gracias. Le voy a dar el tiempo a Andrea para ver si ella puede darnos la oportunidad de responder algunas preguntas.
All right, our next question will come from David. David, I have unmuted your line.
El siguiente presentador es David. David, por favor, tú estás en línea. Quita el modo de mudo.
Yes, this is David. Let me turn my TV down here a little bit. We bought 2 e-bikes early in July. Would we be eligible retroactively when the program goes live? I don't know if I'm live, if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can. Translation?
Mi nombre es David. Déjeme, voy a bajarle un poco al televisor aquí. Sí, yo compré una en el julio pasado. Déjeme ver, no sé si me pueden escuchar, si le podemos escuchar. Go ahead.
The answer to your question, David, is no, the incentives will not be retroactive. They will be available once the program opens to any e-bikes that are purchased through the process that is developed in the coming months.
Okay, so the next question is, who now offers rebates to people that buy bikes before the end of the year or before 2023, if and when you get your program started?
Mi segunda pregunta es, ¿quién es el que ofrece el rebate o la devolución si se ha comprado antes del 2023?
There are several local programs that do offer incentives for e-bikes. Unfortunately, I don't have a list of them at the moment. And then there are opportunities like we had mentioned earlier through our Clean Cars for All program, if you scrap a car and decide to move to an electric bike. But I don't know that any of them currently provide incentives for bikes that have already been purchased. I'm not sure that there are any that are rebate based. I think many of them are, well, I'm not sure, honestly. It just depends on the local region and the program that's being offered.
I heard that PG&E offered some kind of a rebate, but you're not associated with PG&E, are you?
No, we're not.
Mi respuesta es, hay algún grupo de programas locales, lo siento mucho, no tengo la lista aquí que ofrecen ese servicio. Realmente no sé quién provee, pero o quién puede hacer ese tipo de devoluciones, no estoy segura. Pero yo escuché que puede ser el THIE. ¿Ustedes son asociados con ellos? No, realmente no. Back to you.
We did receive a comment from somebody in the Q&A, and I'm amazed that I saw it, that does have a great list of the e-bike programs that are available in the state. Unfortunately, I can't copy that over to the chat, but I'm going to approve the Q&A to drop that link in that place. And we'll make sure to, in our follow-up, anything we post, we'll provide that link or any others that we have handy.
Okay, thank you.
Vamos a proveer comentarios, vamos a proveer sobre los comentarios de las preguntas y respuestas. Y ahí vamos a ponerle el enlace, posiblemente eso puede contestar su inquietud. Está bien, muchas gracias.
Okay, we are unfortunately at time for tonight. We really appreciate all of the participation. We're very used to kind of more organization representatives than so many public representatives, and this really just demonstrates to us how important this program is to you all. So we really appreciate your participation. We are dropping in the chat one more time a link to the materials if you didn't already get that link, so you can take a look at the slideshow presentation and have access to the listserv. If we get an opportunity to, we will try to drop the listserv in the chat as well so that you have a direct link to it there. But you are welcome to email Aria or I, and we're happy to provide those links to you or answer questions. There will be additional work groups, and we're going to kind of rethink the methods so that we can address so many of you at once as well, so that going forward, the process is really smooth. So thank you so much for your participation tonight.
Bien, entonces, desafortunadamente, hemos llegado casi al último de esta noche, en este tiempo. Les agradecemos a todos por su participación y estamos más acostumbrados a recibir más entradas de organizaciones más que del público, pero lo cual enseña que el público, esto es bastante importante para ustedes, y este programa, en realidad les agradecemos su participación, y vamos a bajar un vínculo con todos los materiales. Si usted todavía no ha tenido ese vínculo, vaya ahí para buscarlo y para tener el acceso, para tener la oportunidad de bajarlo al igual. Y también ahí va a mirar un vínculo directo en donde usted pueda ver sus respuestas a las preguntas. También va a haber grupos de trabajo adicionales en donde nosotros vamos a volver a pensar en cómo poder hacer este proceso un poco más fácil, más mejor. Y entonces le doy las gracias a todos por su participación esta noche. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you all again for coming. We'll see you soon.
Bien, entonces muchas gracias a todos por haber estado aquí. Nos miramos pronto.